Hey guys, okay, I am live. Welcome to the 2022 goal setting workshop for personal finance. I really think that goal setting is one of the best ways to give yourself direction for what you're working towards. And so I think that's really important with our finances. And it provides us an opportunity to prioritize what we want to accomplish, what things we want to have, the kind of life that we want to have. So I think it's important to do this regularly since our wants and values change over time. So hopefully at least once per year, you look at the direction that you're going with your finances and make sure that you're up to date on working towards the things that you want to accomplish. Okay, so the outcome that I'm hoping to give you with this workshop, at the end of it, you should have more direction and inspiration for your money goals and just feel more intentional overall with what you are working towards. So who dis? I'm Roxanne. I am a YouTuber and personal finance coach. My background is in accounting and personal finance. I help people budget, pay off debts, save emergency funds. And then this is actually like the fourth goal setting workshop that I have hosted. This is the first one that I've done that's really finance specific. And so it was a little hard for me to prioritize because when I do goal setting, I usually do all categories at once. That way, when I'm brainstorming, I don't have to be critical about like, oh, is this the right kind of goal I should be thinking about right now? So as we're going through the workshop, if you think of goals that are health related, for your house, any other kinds of goals, feel free to write those down as well. Looks like Andrew is in. Goals are good for the life we want to have. Time to hit up Gucci and Louis Vuitton and have a life of luxury. You do you. No, that's good. I do think that yeah, it's important to just think about what you want in your life sometimes. It's so easy to get caught up in the day-to-day of constantly buying Gucci and Louis Vuitton that you might not always be consciously thinking about and making an effort towards the things that you want. So welcome, Andrew. Thanks for hopping on. Okay, so an outline for what I'm going to go over. I'm going to start with result-oriented goals versus process-oriented goals, and then go over a few other like common goal setting terms. That way we're all on the same page. We'll do a brainstorming session, and I'm not going to do any like silent sessions like I was doing when I was doing these regularly. I have prompts that I'll just run through, and then feel free to pause the live stream or go back and rewatch in order to, if you're filling those out for the first time, like if it's going too fast. We'll do organize and prioritize goals, refine and reframe. So I'm going to go over the SMART framework for goal setting. So we'll take a look at goals for that. We'll do how to create an action plan for each goal. And again, that's just a list of prompts that I have that I go through for each goal. And I'll do three common mistakes that people make with their personal finance goals. You won't really need anything, paper and pen, or the ability to type into a spreadsheet document if you would like. Okay, let's go ahead and get started with terminology. So results versus process goals. So result-oriented is the outcome of what you want. It answers the question of what do you want, and it defines what you'll have at the end of the journey. So if you set a 6-month goal, it's the outcome of what you'll have at the end of those 6 months. One example of this is like save $100 in January. So what will you have at the end of January? You should have $100. That's a result-oriented goal. The other type is process goal, and this is the how of the goal. It answers the question, what are you going to do in order to get results that you are after? So an example of a process goal would be to cook 2 additional meals instead of dining out to save $50 each time. So that's 2 ways to state kind of the same intention. One is the result oriented of I want to have $100, and the other is how you're going to do it by cutting these particular things out of your spending. I feel like this is really important for personal finance goals specifically because money is really intangible. Like when you say to me, oh, I want to save $100, that doesn't really mean anything, right? Like it's kind of vague, like, oh, how are you going to get that $100? That's really the question that you want to answer, as you're saving money. And now there's certainly nothing wrong with setting result-oriented goals. You can and should have a combination of each. I just wanted to identify those as the two different kinds of goals, so that way you can be aware of it while you're setting goals and deciding what you're going to work on. Okay, let's talk about resolutions versus intentions versus goals. So a resolution, and I did have to look this up, deciding to do or not to do something. So it's the decision that you make. Making a commitment to act a certain way is another one of the definitions. So examples of this would be, I will not spend money before I have it. That's a great kind of like principle of personal finance that you could set as a resolution for yourself. I will not let my checking account dip below $1,000 or whatever increment you want to set it at. I will not use my credit card unless someone is dying, if you have a credit card just for emergencies. So those are some different types of commitments that you could set. And, it doesn't really have that outcome, and it's not really a how. It's just a decision that you make, something that you commit to doing. Now for intentions. Intentions are like the core outcome of what you want. So a lot of the times when I'm doing goal setting with clients, I'll say, that's a good intention, but not a very, good goal. So when I say that, I'm talking about, it's okay to want a particular thing. Like maybe the first thing that comes to mind is this year I want to save more money. That's actually one of the most common resolutions that people set. So save more money, that's a fine intention to have, but it's not a very easily achievable goal. It's pretty vague, right? Like you would say, let me think here. Yeah, it's not a clearly defined SMART goal, and maybe I should have done goals first, but the definition for goals, the object of a person's ambition or effort, an aim or desired result. So for this workshop, when I'm talking about goals, I'm talking about SMART goals. So SMART is an acronym. It stands for specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and time-bound. I did not create this. It's a popular goal-setting framework. And it helps prevent that like constant guilt of, am I doing enough to, achieve my goals? Am I doing enough to feel good about my progress? So it helps answer that question, helps you to define your goal a little better. So you can have your same intention, but you might just you might tweak it a little. You might tweak it a little to be a little bit more specific, a little bit more measurable. And I will go over each one here quickly. I know I've gone over this on the channel before, but since it's a new year, it's a good time to kind of just refresh on it and make sure that the goals we're setting are setting us up for success and not headache or distress. So for specific, so you want to make sure that your goal is not too vague. So for that example of save money, what does that really mean? Does saving $1 satisfy that goal? Are you going to feel good about that? Probably not, right? So it's, making sure that you're defining it, and you'll know that it's specific enough. You'll know your goal is specific enough if you could cross it off of the checklist. So cross it off, it's done, it's done. The goal of save money, if that's how you frame it and think of it, there's really no point in time where you would cross that off the list, right? How much, where do you want that money? All those questions would prevent you from marking that as complete. So a better version of that would be transfer $200 each paycheck from checking to savings account. Much more specific, right? It has the same intention, which is to save more money, but it's framed as, a SMART goal a goal phrase, essentially. So transfer $200 each paycheck from checking to savings. That answers all the questions. What, how will you do it? I'll transfer it, and when, every 2 weeks. So making your goals more specific is a good way to kind of take that next step and make sure that it is something that you're going to be able to do. Okay, the M is for measurable. So you should be able to see the percent completion or track like the number of dollars to completion at all times on your journey to accomplishing that goal. So an example of a not measurable goal would be feel in control of spending. It's pretty specific, right? In control is a particular specific feeling, but it's not measurable, right? You wouldn't be able to say I'm 50% in control of my spending, right? So a better version of that goal would be something like update and prioritize purchase procrastination list every Sunday. So you would pick one specific thing and kind of define what that really means to you. Like, what are you really trying to accomplish? What are like the actionable real life things that you could do in order to get that feeling, that sense of control? So that would just be one example is, instead of feel in control of spending, it would be, do a weekly household meeting where I manage our finances. So this is something my husband and I do. We meet every Sunday and we make sure bills are paid. We transfer any money that needs to be transferred. We review investments. We review and categorize spending. So that way we always know exactly how much we've spent. So that's one of the ways that we feel in control with our finances. So I would just encourage you to take that next step and think through a little bit more of like, what does that mean? What would that look like if you were in control of your spending? What actions would you do? What's going to give you that sense of control that you are looking for? So as far as it being measurable, update and prioritize purchase procrastination list every Sunday. Is that measurable? Yes. Because you could say there's 52 Sundays this year. I've done 10 of them, so I'm X percent. I can't do the math. I'm X percent of the way through this goal, so measurable. And feel free to let me know if you guys have questions as I go. The A in the SMART goal framework is for attainable. So you should only set goals that you can complete by yourself. You can get input and buy-in from others, and a lot of the times we do have goals that require some kind of input or support from other people. Even things like increasing your sales number, how many sales you make each month, that kind of is dependent on other people. So it's kind of a range, right? Like basically nobody does anything in a vacuum fully alone without other people involved, right? Even if your goal is like to write every day, you might need like your spouse's support to take care of the kids while you go to write. So making sure that it's attainable enough for you. And I know this one's a little bit confusing. The best example that I've thought of this was actually one of the big life goals that I had for myself. The first one was like to get my money in order. And my second big goal was to help my siblings get their finances in order. Now, is that personally attainable for me? No, it is not. Is that a violation of personal boundaries? Yes, it absolutely is. Because I don't get to decide what they do with their lives. Sadly, I wish I could. But making sure that you're setting goals that you can, accomplish. So an example would be a better version of that. A more attainable version would be do one career enhancement project with each brother. So this is what I actually did when I realized that my goal was not personally attainable. One of the things I did was help one of my brothers get scuba certified because he was interested in like underwater welding, had never done either. So I was like, okay, I can help him explore one of these things and just see if it's something that he's interested in. So, that became something, and I, obviously I still can't force him to go to a scuba diving certification class, So it required his buy-in, but it was still something that we were able to attain. It was something that I was able to check off of the list. So make sure that when you're setting goals, you think about whose input you're going to need to accomplish that goal, and if it's really a goal that's attainable for you personally. The R is for realistic. And there's a quote by Brian Tracy that says, "There are no unrealistic goals. There are only unrealistic deadlines." And I like that because I do think that, you don't want to limit yourself as far as like, oh, is this realistic for me? You want to have kind of a good balance between like pushing yourself towards big, important goals, but then also making sure that they're like not overwhelming. A good balance between big and exciting, enough to motivate you, and small enough to actually accomplish. So when you're thinking about, is your goal realistic, kind of try to weigh those two things out. See, is this goal like, way on this end of barely realistic for me? Like if you currently make 40 grand per year and you set a goal to earn $1 million next year, is that realistic? I mean, I'm sure it has happened before. I'm sure it's not outside of the realm of possibility. But that doesn't really set you up for success, does it? Like it doesn't really set you up to knock that goal out of the park, get the feeling of goodness. That doesn't make sense. Get that good feeling, the motivation, from having accomplished a goal. So you don't want to overwhelm or discourage yourself by setting goals that are too large. And I'm going to go over, at the end of the workshop, I'll go over a few ways that I make sure these are realistic. One of them is to tier the goals. So instead of saying I want to save $1,000 this month, you might say, okay, I'll give myself 1 star if I save $800 this month. I'll give myself 2 stars if I save 1,000, and wow, really impressive, 3 stars if I save $1,200. So a lot of the times when I go to do that, I will notice that the initial goal that I thought was pretty reasonable and realistic was actually the highest, hardest, most difficult of the like reasonable range. So I feel like that helps me to kind of make it more realistic in the current year. And there's a really good quote. Who is it? It's Bill Gates says people tend to overestimate what they can do in 1 year and underestimate what they can do in 10 years. So thinking about that just kind of, supports that idea that our annual goals should be small and realistic. But then our bigger goals, we might be underestimating how much we can achieve. So just think about that as you are setting your goals. And the final letter, T, in the SMART goal framework is time bound. This one's pretty straightforward. Have a deadline for each goal. So you might say, by the end of March, I want to have saved $750, for example. Since we are doing annual goal setting, there's kind of an implied deadline for the end of the year. I do think setting 1-year goals is probably too difficult. I've read some research, like the book, The 12-Week Year. In that book, they talk about like the research of like how long is too long, like what's kind of the right time frame for goals. And their conclusion was that about 12 weeks is about the right time frame to like stay motivated on it. Because if you set a year-long goal, you might be like me when I had my handstand goal. You wait until November to get started, right? Because you have a full year, you don't really need to get started right away. So instead, focusing on smaller time frames, like 12 weeks, which happens to also be about a quarter of the year, which happens to also be about 100 days, you'll see that like most people that like help, most productivity experts and coaches will do quarterly goals of 3 months. So that seems to be about the right time frame to keep you engaged and working towards a goal. It makes it harder because you have to learn how to scale annual goals down to quarterly goals. Like the first time I tried to do this, I just took my annual goals and I was like, oh, annual? Nope, quarterly. And yeah, that's not a very good way to set yourself up for success either, over planning how much you can do. Do you guys have any questions on SMART goals? The very next section is going to be the brainstorming section. So if you guys have questions, I can go ahead and do those before, or I can, if I don't get to it while we're going through, I'll make sure to cover them at the end. And when you're doing brainstorming for goals, you want to make sure that you don't judge yourself. There's no wrong answers. You can write down any kind of goal, write down anything that you can think of that you even might possibly be interested in. I do sometimes write down goals and then just decide, you know, that I'm not really that interested in that particular goal. So there's nothing wrong with writing it down. You want to kind of get into the mind frame, the frame of mind that, you know, that you can write down anything you want and just work towards things a little bit at a time. So try not to judge yourself. I've heard people say like, oh, I didn't want to write that down because it was too silly. I've heard people say, oh, well, I thought of that, but it's not really possible for me. Saying things are too difficult. So you just want to be careful about those judgments. Try to just brainstorm freely, whatever comes to mind. And then you'll be able to go back through and either eliminate those or tweak them later. In the process, I have the step for like refine and reframe. So don't be afraid to write down whatever comes to mind, whatever you feel interested in. And don't worry about SMART yet. Any intention is fine. Any resolution, like I said, we'll go through after you have the initial brainstorming set, and we'll tweak them later. So I'm going to go over the types of financial goals. And like I said, write down anything you might be interested or might want to work towards. So I tried to break these into sections. So debt payoff goals. These first two are pretty straightforward. Debt payoff goals. Are you wanting to pay off your student loans? Do you have personal loans, credit cards, car loans, any kind of debt that you are wanting to pay off in the current year? Let me see, maybe I should add a banner here. So it's their brainstorming session. Oh man, I'm fancy. It's been a while since I've done a live stream, so still remembering how to do it. Okay, so we're brainstorming goals. Is there debt that you want to pay off? Debt that you want to prioritize? Savings goals. Do you need to save money for an emergency fund? Are you starting or increasing retirement savings? So like contributing to IRA accounts or 401k at work, any kind of retirement savings. Do you have a home down payment to save for? Is there any fun saving that you want to do? Vacation, cars, furniture, stuff, anything like that. Any educational savings goals, whether it's for a kid, your child, nephew, or yourself if you're planning to go through school or some kind of course. Do you want to set money aside for medical savings? Things like braces. I know people will save for that. I don't know why. Those were the only savings goals that I could think of. I'm sure there's more. I'm sure I forgot some. And let's see. Andrew says, yeah, I agree in reframing. Personally, would rather miss a goal by a little bit than hit a home run / overachieve a goal. Interesting. Yeah, I've been on both ends of it. Like there have been times where I have like overdone it and hit a goal in like October, and then I was like, oh, I guess I'm done with that. And then there was a time that I was actually, speaking of running, since you said running, the goal was to run 1,000 kilometers, and I didn't finish in December. And I was like, oh, should I just give up on this? And I was like, well, I'll just see how long it takes me to finish. So I ended up finishing in January, so like 1 extra month. And it did definitely help motivate me to like keep working out in the month of January. which is particularly cold and crummy here. So it was good that I just decided to like extend it. So anyway, thank you. How do I get back? How do I get back to my banner? Okay, so we're brainstorming still. So those were all those savings goals I could think of. So think about how much you want to save and for what. And like I said, if you don't have to come up with an amount right now. Career goals. Are there any promotions that you are working towards? A raise or bonus, anything like that that you are trying to accomplish at work? If you set something like that as your goal, you can break it down into, what steps are going to help me to get that raise, promotion. Do I need to get some kind of education? Do I need to improve my skills? Can I set a meeting with my boss to ask what I can do in order to receive a raise or promotion? A goal to move to a new company or to move to a new career. That's it for career goals. For income goals, side hustles to start or grow, selling things. This is one that I've done more recently. Like we had 2 garage sales last year, actually. Also started selling things on Facebook Marketplace. It's just a good way to recoup some of the cost. Hit a certain dollar amount earned per year. I know a lot of people have a goal to like earn $100,000 annual salary. Bank account churning or rewards churning. I put that one on there for you, Andrew. I thought of you when I put that on there. So what are your goals for that this year? Do you have a goal to churn your bank account, to turn your emergency funds a certain number of times? Do you want to do a certain number of credit card signups, a certain number of bonuses that you can get? So those would be goals that you could add to your list. Passive income stream goals. Andrew says, oh, hey. Passive income stream goals. So there's a statistic that the average millionaire has 7 income streams. And if you're unfamiliar with this, some of the common ones are regular earned income. So earned income that you would get from a job. It's going to be dividends, interest, royalties, capital gains from buying and selling stocks. There's digital products and rental properties. So there's lots of different ways you can earn money. And so sometimes it's helpful to think of, oh, okay, what one additional thing could I do to have a little bit more income? I also think of this as just adding sources of income. So if you already have a rental property, maybe you add an additional rental property, whatever you want to work towards. It doesn't have to be, you don't have to have one of each. And certainly, most people don't, but it has been interesting for me to think about, okay, those are the different categories that I could learn, because maybe I like some of those more than others. Like maybe I learned how to make capital gains by investing. And maybe I really like that one, but then I really dislike owning a rental property. So I think it's good to experiment with the different kinds, because you might resonate more with some than others. So I think those would be good goals to add as well. Educational goals. So growing financial literacy. Early on in my journey, one of my goals was to read one article on MSN Money each day. So like the personal finance section of MSN.com. So I would just go out and like read through the articles, pick one that interested me and read it. And so expanding your knowledge is helpful. I know that most people believe that they have good financial literacy. And even after being told that they have poor financial literacy, people still believe they have good financial literacy. So I personally, I like learning about money anyway. So I don't mind going out and, listening to a podcast about how to save money, or reading a blog about, your net worth, recommended net worth by age. So I think that's a really good goal. If you're going to pick kind of one area, one actionable area for like a process-oriented goal, I think education, this kind of thing would be a good one to pick. I got a lot of ideas during that time on things to do to save money. And just so it's more than just the general knowledge. A lot of the times you can learn like actionable things to try. That's how I learned about the person that uses scissors to cut pizza instead of having a pizza cutter. So that was one of the things I ended up not buying as a result of just having read something randomly when I was doing that like researching education time. I'm currently working on investing knowledge. So reading something about that each day. It's very complicated, the world of finance. So I feel like there's always more that can be learned. And then, like I said, I'm doing research to find like one way to save money every day. And it's not that you have to even try them all. It's just, you might find a tip that's like, oh, that's a perfect fit for me. I had this problem anyway, and now I don't need to spend any money or whatever. The next section is routine goals. So what goals can you add for your personal finances that will help you stay on top of things? It might be a daily personal finance review. So that might be going and checking your bank balance every day, reviewing and categorizing your spending. It might be a daily routine of education. Other routine goals that you could set for your finances would be like the weekly money meeting, a monthly financial review, or a quarterly financial review. And that contributes to like staying on top of your finances and money management, which is a perfect segue because that's my next section. So you'd ask yourself, what do you want managing your money to be like? I think that managing your money should be easy and quick. I think if it is not, then it makes it really hard to stay on top of. So I'm kind of on a constant search for like, how can I make my finances easier to manage? How can I make it so that it's faster and easier to do? So questions for that. Are there new systems that you want to try, like doing cash envelopes? Are there apps that you've been meaning to try, like Mint, EveryDollar, YNAB are the big ones? A spreadsheet that you want to make or change, update? Budget goals. So budgeting would be a whole section under the money management umbrella. So you could set a goal to set 12 budgets throughout the year. So you could say, I want to set 12 budgets and I want to stick within 10% accuracy on those budgets. One of the things that people often do when they start budgeting for the first time is thinking that right away they're going to be able to stick to a budget. And sticking to a budget, it's even a little bit vague, isn't it? Like, nobody hits their budget right on the money. You're going to be under or over every month. It's a balancing act. You don't want either. You don't want to like weigh, overestimate expenses. You don't want to way underestimate them either, because then you're not deciding at the start of the month what you're going to do with all your money. So it's a balancing act, trying to figure out exactly how to budget. It took my husband and I like 4 or 5 months to kind of hone in our skill, that ability to estimate how much our spending would be in each category. So don't give up right away, keep working on it. But I think something like stick to the budget within 10% accuracy or within $100 accuracy. I think that would be a better way to frame that goal. The next under money management would be challenges. So I love doing no spend challenges. I'll say like I want to do 6 week-long no spend challenges throughout the year. I want to do a no buy January, for example, where I just wouldn't buy anything. You can do no spend, low buy, or no buy. So no buy, I mean, I don't know who created this, but I usually hear it referred to as like, you do it for like the full year. People say, oh, this is my no buy year. And then you set your own rules for what you will allow yourself to and not to buy. No spend day tracking. So you might say, I want to have 100 no spend days this year. So days where you just don't spend any money. Saving money tips Kanban board. So if you're unfamiliar with a Kanban board, you have 3 different sections on like a poster board or any kind of poster board where you put the pins in. It can be any kind of board, but you have one section for not started, not completed, one section for in process, and then one section for completed. And then you can like take your post-it note and move it when it's in process and then move it to completed when it's done. So it's just a process for managing tasks in a project. So you can do that kind of thing with saving money tips. Like I have that right now. I have a post-it note that says DIY sprouts. It's in the not started. I need to move it into the in process or started section. But so keeping track of the tips that you have would fall under that money management goal section. And then finally, for money management, what metrics do you want to improve? So I notice that a lot of my clients will get discouraged sometimes, and they'll like latch onto like one negative thing that has happened with their finances instead of keeping on top of like all of the metrics and kind of taking that step back to see if they've really made progress or not. So one example was I had a client that had an overdraft on their checking account and they were feeling really low about it and beating themselves up. But when we looked at their savings rate for the month, it was really high, higher than it had been. And they had paid off like an extra $1,000 worth of debt. And so the reason they had a cash shortage was because they had paid $1,000 extra on debt. So, you know, when you look at it compared to that, like I can't remember what it was, maybe a $20 overdraft fee versus having paid an extra $1,000 on debt, you're still doing well, right? Like I think that tracking statistics for your finances, like savings rate, net worth, your liability total, like how much total debt you have, I feel like those, and overall spending too, just knowing by category how much you spend. Knowing those metrics is very helpful for giving that big picture view instead of just looking at individual transactions or the little pieces of your finances. So you could set a goal for the metrics that you want to improve. Like I want to increase my savings rate by 10% would be an example. Okay, the next section is fun money goals. So what would you like to do with extra money that you have? Are there places that you want to travel to? This is where I put like, I do always, okay, I should mention this now. I try to estimate every goal that I put on there. So if I have planned for a trip to Europe, I will go to the internet and say cost per day of trip to Europe, average cost of flights to Europe, and get just a rough estimate on how much it'll cost. Because sometimes I'm surprised at how little or how expensive things are. And just there have been times where I've been like, oh, I don't know if I can really afford that. I don't know that I'll put it on here. Then when I went and did the estimate, I was like, oh, that's actually not bad. I can fit that in to my list. So try to figure out how much each item will cost on your goals list. So another fun money goal, what do you want to own? Are there things that you want to buy, just consumerist items? Are there retreats, conferences that you want to go to? Other things like cruises. I think one of a good money goal, a good process-oriented goal would be keeping a gratitude list. I find that this helps me personally to save money. Just thinking about how much I have, it kind of reinforces that idea that I don't really, I don't really need a lot more because I have all this stuff that I'm grateful for. Oh, hello. Here's Gracie. How are you? How are you defining fun money? Okay, so these are just the things that feel a little bit more like special things that you wouldn't normally buy. Um, so let's see. Yeah, so like what would you want to own? It's just the whatever fun, um, interesting things that you would purchase if you had the extra money, or things that you would want to set money aside for. Good question. Hopefully that answered it. And these are like vague categories. You guys can feel free to kind of define the categories for yourself. I just wanted to kind of lump things together so that way you can maybe like be like, oh, okay, here's one fun money goal that I'm going to save for. Here's one career goal that I'm going to work towards. If you have them lumped into categories, it's a little easier to pick which ones you're going to do, because you can work on one career goal at the same time that you're working on what would be like saving $100. You can do both of those goals at the same time. And so that's why I find it's kind of helpful to categorize them. So other fun money goals, and maybe this will help as well. Andrew, I was just chatting with you about this, snowbirding, or like being a digital nomad. So like being able to use your living expenses in a different way than you normally would. So move somewhere that you would like more than the place you currently live would be another. I guess this was kind of an other category as well. So it would be a combination of fun things that you're interested in. Okay, I only have 3 more categories, and then we'll move on to like the general ones. So I have frugality goals. So one that I thought of is one that I heard from the Choose FI podcast, which is a really good one. If you guys haven't checked that out, it's to spend $2 per person per meal. So that's like a good like frugality rule of thumb for like how much to spend on food. So you could set a frugality goal of $2 per meal per person, and average it out over the week or month. You could say another frugality goal would be cutting spending by X% or X dollars. So like I want to cut my spending by 10%. There would be your overall spending goals that you could set as well. I've had one, keep spending under $40,000 per year. So that's like the big picture of how much our spending would be instead of the more detailed one. And the nice thing about those big ones is you can break them down into monthly chunks. So 40,000 divided by 12 would give me what our monthly goal is. Other frugality goals: learn to DIY something. Maybe that's like home maintenance, car maintenance. A lot of people change their own oil, for example. So you could set a goal to learn how to change your own oil. I did that and decided not to do it. And then personal care, DIY personal care. Some people make their own lotions and potions kind of thing. So learn to DIY something is one of the frugality choices. Another frugality goal would be something like thrift first. So this was a goal that I set for myself to, whenever I wanted to buy like a piece of clothing or an item for our house, to just try to find it used first. There's certain things that you can find really easily at like yard sales, garage sales, the thrift store. So I basically just started a list of things to look for when I was out there, like things that I would like to buy. And that actually turned into my purchase procrastination list, which I share on here all the time now. It was just a sticky note on the front of my day planner of like, try to find a long sleeve work shirt, try to find a toaster. Those are the kinds of things that I would look for. And I realized how helpful it was having that list of things that I wanted, and how writing them down, the act of writing them down, sometimes it makes me not even want them anymore. Like sometimes I would notice that those things just happen to be impulse purchases. So thrift first, buy used, that can be one of your like goals for the year. And it doesn't have to be 100%. You could say, okay, for every 3 things I buy, one of them I'll buy through Facebook Marketplace or used somehow. The final one for that category is purchase procrastination system. So you could say, oh, in 2022, I want to review my purchase procrastination list every week, prioritize the things I want, and see if I can fit them into the budget. I think this is also a really good way to prevent deprivation and to spend responsibly, because when you have financial goals, a lot of the times they'll be kind of long, right? Like if you need to pay off a lot of debt, like if you have $200,000 worth of student loans, it's going to take you a while to do that, and so you don't want to get burnt out. You don't want to like push yourself so hard that you fall into binge spending. So I feel like having a system where you practice buying things responsibly, buying things carefully and intentionally, is a really helpful skill to have. So even after like paying off debt, I still keep up with that system of keeping track of the things that I want to buy. So not like needs, I'm talking about wants specifically here. And then waiting a certain amount of time and then allowing myself to purchase them if I still want them. And it also helps you to have a better budget, because then you can take those things and work them into your future budgets. Okay, investing goals. Getting close to the end of the prompts here, I promise. Investing goals. How much do you want to invest this year? How much do you want to have invested? Is there a particular amount that you're trying to save? So that would be like calculating your financial independence number. What types of investments do you want to own? So this would be things like, oh, maybe I want to buy a rental property this year. Generosity goals. So one of the ones that I have that's ongoing is to give more than the year before. So just kind of always pushing that number up. You could choose to donate a certain percentage or dollar amount. You could identify the charities that you want to support or how much you do want to give. I guess that was redundant because I said dollar amount already. So generosity goals was the last one. And then I have just at the end here, just a few generic prompts for thinking through what you might want to work on for your financial goals for 2022. So the first one is, how do you want to feel about your finances? Do you want to feel more in control? Do you want to feel more relaxed? Identifying that emotion you want is going to be a good intention to set. And then you can think through, okay, here's the intention that I want. Here are some of the things that I could do to help achieve that feeling. So that way you have something actionable to think about and work towards. What kind of relationship do you want to have with money? There is a Tim Ferriss question that he always asks, which is, what one thing could I do that would make the rest of my life easier, or the rest of the things easier? And I think this was specifically referring to running his business. What's the one thing I could do that would make everything else easier? So you can use that same prompt for your finances. What one thing could I do that would make managing my finances easier? What one thing could I do to make earning money easier? Some of the things I thought about for like managing your money would be getting 1 month ahead on bills. It just eliminates having to worry about transactions going in and out all the time. So that would be a great goal if you were trying to make the rest of your finances easier, right? And then another one would be like the weekly review. If you do a weekly financial review, you're going to be on top of your spending. You're going to be on top of, taking action on things. So that's another one that like that goal specifically would make other goals easier. The next general prompt is, what do you want to do with your time? So if you had more money and you were able to free up some of your time, what would you want to do with that time? There's a really great Marie Forleo prompt, which is, wouldn't it be cool if? So this is one I've been trying to use to like set bigger goals, to try to push myself to like, I don't know, dream bigger is corny, but dream bigger essentially. So wouldn't it be cool if ... I had this amount of money, or I was able to do this thing for this person that I love. So wouldn't it be cool if is a good prompt. What do you want your legacy to be? What will happen with your money when you pass away? Do you have a goal that you want to leave your children or siblings a certain amount of money? And okay, so which financial skill do you need to improve the most? So I like to think of like these main skills as earning, cutting, and keeping. Those are the three things that you need to do to like manage your money well. You need to know how to earn money, and like increase your earnings, like asking for raises and promotions or running a business kind of thing. You need to know how to cut your spending. You want to be able to have enough control over your finances that you can cut spending down if income falls, and also ratchet spending back up when it comes back. So just the ability to flex your muscle and make that happen for your finances is a really important skill. So understanding how to cut spending, and then keeping. So you need to know how to keep money, how to have it and not spend it, which a lot of us struggle with, like being able to have money in your account and not spend it, being able to set aside retirement money and not tap it prematurely, like making sure that you set it aside for a particular reason and then not touch it if not for that reason. And then the final one, if you sat through these and you're like, I don't know what I want, which a lot of people I think struggle with, like not knowing what goal they should set for their finances. A good question to ask is, what don't you want for your finances? This question has always been kind of like more motivating for me ever since I started like doing like learning about personal finance. It was like, I don't want to be broke. Like it was stated in the negative, which I thought would be a bad thing. Like people usually say to set your goals in a positive way, to set it in a like positive statement. Like instead of I want to lose weight, you'd say like, I want to look the best I've ever looked. I mean, that's a bad example, but positive versus negative framing. You can go through and just ask yourself, what don't you want your finances to be like? And that might help give you, then you can just look at like, okay, what would the opposite of that be? Hopefully that helps. That's a lot of talking. Already talked for an hour. Okay, so that's all of the prompts that I have. The next section is organizing those goals and prioritizing them. So as far as organizing goes, you don't really have to eliminate any of the goals. You can and should work towards having everything that you want. It really just comes down to a matter of, is now the right time or not? Can you fit it in this year? Sometimes you will have a busy year and you're not going to be able to make progress on some of the things that you want. There's busy seasons in life, like if you're going to school, that certainly makes it harder to do other things, right? You just don't really have the bandwidth available to like have more projects or more goals, right? So try not to make it feel too restrictive on yourself, like, oh, I can't go after this right now. Tasha's here. Hello. Thanks for commenting. It's nice to see you. So we just did all of the prompts for like coming up with goals that you might be interested in. And now we're going through the organizing and prioritizing piece. The last step will be action planning. So like I said, like really trying to ask yourself, just is now the right time to work on this goal? Can I fit it in now? For each of the goals that you identified when we were going through the prompts, you could go through and identify which of them are short-term, which of them are medium-term goals, and which are long-term goals. I just use short-term is 1 year or less. medium length goals is 1 to 5 years, and then long-term is 5 or more years. For goals that are medium or long-term, I tried to think about what would be the 1 year portion of that. What could I do in this year that would help me hit that goal in 5 years? So it's a little bit more complicated than just listing out every goal and then working on them. You kind of have to identify, which you can work towards now, how you can make progress on those longer ones, because I wish I could do a 5-year goal in 1 year, but it's not possible. 40 and broke, hello, welcome. Was actually writing down my goals in smart format a few minutes ago. Oh, wonderful. Okay, you're in the right place then. I'll do a few more examples of SMART goals at the end. Yeah, I find that that's just a really helpful way to make sure that like my goals make sense and are things that are actually actionable. So that's awesome. Isn't the new year so fun? I love it. Okay, so we are moving on to organizing. Thank you for commenting, because that reminded me that I needed to change my banner. Okay. So you're going through and you're identifying for your goals, are they short-term, medium-term, or long-term? So an example for that, if you need to save $40,000 for a down payment and you want to buy a house in 4 years, you need to have saved $10,000 by the end of this year. So breaking it down into the annual version of it. The other things you can do is like identify all of the milestones for that goal. I didn't prepare a financial one, but I have heard like Mel Robbins talk about writing a book, and like she outlined the steps that it would take her to write it. It's like writing the outline, writing the first draft. So you could say the first year, or the annual version of this 5-year goal is write an outline. So taking those bigger goals and breaking them down. I would encourage you not to try to plan out the entire thing. This is more about just identifying a small chunk that you can do in the first 3 months or in this first year. It can be overwhelming to like plan out an entire project. And it's not exactly a great use of time either, because you might find like other ways to do it. Like maybe you plan out the whole project of how to self-publish a book and then end up like going the like traditional publishing route. So just kind of like the next step, try to always figure out the next step for each of the goals or projects that you're working on. I would say go through your goals and mark any of them that would help you achieve the other goals. So like right now, I do have the goal of saving a home down payment. And so one of the goals that supports that goal would be to do 200 no spend days in the year. Limiting my spending days helps reduce the opportunity for impulse spending, impulse purchases. So that goal like can support my other financial goals. And this goes back to that, is it results oriented or is it a process oriented goal? Is it the result, the thing that you have at the end of the time frame, or is it what actions you take to get to a particular result? So like the no spend days for me is a process oriented goal. It's something that I'm going to work on throughout the year. There's no like outcome at the end of it. It's a process oriented. So you should have some of each. And in fact, I would say pick your top 3 result oriented goals that you want to work towards, and pick your top 3 process oriented goals. That way you have a combination of both. You're saying what you want and how you're going to work towards it. I don't know why I'm doing Italian hands so much lately. I've been doing this in all my videos. I don't know why. Try not to pick more than 7 goals altogether. I have read some research that says our brain can't really remember more than 7 things at a time. So if you have 7 goals or less, or at least 7 top goals that you're working towards, you're going to be more likely to remember them. A really good exercise that I've done was trying to write out my goals every day by memory. They say that it's good to handwrite your goals, that it like, I can't even remember what the stat was about it, but something about tying some correlation between handwriting your goals and actually having achieved them. And it was good because I heard that, like, if you can't remember all of your goals, were they really that important, the ones that you couldn't remember? Because you're going to very likely remember the big ones that are really important to you. And so it can kind of be a filtering mechanism for, trying to make sure that you have, that you're focusing on the most important. Tasha, 3 is a good number to start with. Do you agree that it would be more effective to set goals by the quarter? Would that be a medium-sized goal? Okay, good question. So when I do, in the workshop that I did medium-term goal was 1 to 5 years. But you could certainly break your annual goals into short-term, medium, and long-term as well. If it's going to take you a full year to write a book, then you would certainly have 50,000 words be your annual long goal. Half the year would be 25,000. So yeah, I hadn't thought of it before, but you certainly could. And I agree, 3 is a good number to start with. Yes, quarterly is much better. I was talking at the start of the session about kind of like the 12-week year, and how a lot of people who like are productivity coaches do encourage people to do quarterly goals, because one year, like I set a goal to do a handstand, and I didn't start working on it until November. And that's a good way to hurt your wrists, which I did. So yes, quarterly is good because it's more real, right? Like, you need to work on it now, and you can't just procrastinate for 11 months. So yes, I agree with this. I agree with that very much. Okay. So the last note on organizing and prioritizing your goals is to label them 1 to 3 or 1 to 7 or however many you have, with number 1 being the most important top goal. Now, this is hard for me to help you with because you're going to have to prioritize based on what you want and what you value most. It's very painful for me to go through and say, oh, hello, goal, you're goal number 1. And, your goal number 2 and your goal number 3. Like, they all feel very important to me. I like them all so much. It's hard to choose. But having that priority ahead of time will help with decision making down the road. So if you know your number 1 top goal for the year, then that can be like your beacon, your guiding light for like how you make decisions throughout the year. And an example of this is I was doing a health year, and I remember I was standing in the grocery store and I was like, am I going to buy these like slightly more expensive snacks for running, like the goos that you get for running when you're doing a race, whatever. So like, should I spend more money on these goos? And I was like, okay, well, my top goal for the year was health. So I set this, I'm planning to run this marathon. And so that helped me decide, should I prioritize my money goal or my health goal? So I do this both, like, overall for the categories. So like I said, every year I pick one area of life to focus on: finance, health, home, relationships. So I pick one to be my focus for the year. And then within each category of goals, I pick the top one in that category. And that just helps with, like I said, the decision making. Because if you have multiple, then you might have conflicts sometimes. Having that priority established is going to help you to decide what to do and take the decision making out of it, really. And of course, you can't go hog wild and buy all goos all the time, I guess, all gels all the time. But hopefully that is helpful. Okay. So now refining and reframing them. So going through the SMART framework for each goal would be the next step in the process. Could this goal be more specific? That would be one of the questions. Could this goal be more measurable? Could this goal be more personally attainable, more realistic? Could it be more time specific as well? So that's kind of like, Tasha, your point of, could you make it quarterly? As you go through your goals, look at which ones could be quarterly goals and which ones would be maybe you don't hit them until quarter 3, for example. All right, another way that I would say to refine and reframe your goals would be to try to tier them. And I mentioned this early on too. If you have a goal and you say, okay, if I were to make this like 3 different levels, I'll give myself 1 star if I save $800. I'll give myself 2 stars if I save $1,000. I'll give myself 3 stars for $1,200 if I'm able to save that amount. When I go to do that, I often notice that the goal that I initially set was that high level difficult goal. And like it's at the top of like what's reasonable for me. So I think that this is a really good exercise to go through and try to tier each of your goals to identify where you're at in that range and to give yourself a little bit more flexibility. So for some of the goals that we were talking about, I said savings would be one way to do it. What else did we say? I want to give you like one more example here. So other goals that you could tier, so like the purchase procrastination system. So if you say, I want to do purchase procrastination every Sunday, you might say, okay, I'm going to give myself 1 star if I do it every other Sunday, like once every 2 weeks. I'll give myself 2 stars if it's, if I do it every week. So just thinking about what the different levels, what the different options are for that goal is quite helpful. Okay, and then the last one for refining and reframing would be to set a few a few stretch goals and a few slam dunks. So stretch goals are going to be like those goals at the top of the range, the more difficult ones, and that you have to like stretch to get to, that are going to push you outside of your comfort zone. They're going to challenge you. Because ultimately, like when you're doing those stretch goals, you're going to get a lot of benefit out of doing those because it's uncomfortable. You have to kind of grow as a person sometimes in order to hit those. So try to challenge yourself with a few of those more difficult stretch goals, and then have a few slam dunks. Like, here's an easy goal. I'm going to get a quick win off of this. And those help provide momentum, a feeling of momentum in your goal setting and just overall, what's the word for this? Yeah, it'll just give you a sense of momentum for your productivity and like working towards your goals. If you're able to like slam dunk a goal, like, okay, what would be another example? So something pretty easy, like, well, I don't want to say too easy. I always think things are easy, so I need to be better about that. Like daily checking your bank balance kind of thing. So give yourself some that are pretty easy that you can do and feel good about and check off that box. Okay, if there aren't any questions on refining and reframing, then we can go on to the action planning section. So Tasha brought this up. The first tip I had, don't plan out a whole year. Try to just do the first quarter. Try to do just the first 12 months. And it's okay if you do the full year, but then try to break those down into quarterly sections, quarterly chunks. So that way what you are focusing on is less overwhelming and more actionable and coming up sooner, so you know you have to work on it. Okay, here are the prompts that I use for coming up with an action plan. And I don't do action planning with every single goal just because it's pretty time intensive. But I do find it really helpful for making sure that I have things set up in a way that I can achieve them, and to make things actionable and outline the steps that I need to do, and really understanding what it's going to take to achieve a particular goal. So the prompts are, why do I want to do this? Lead with why, as Simon Sinek says. So create a why statement. I'm going to go over that in more detail below, but I just want to go through each of the prompts so that way you guys have them and you can go back through this and fill it in for each of your big goals. So why do I want to achieve this? What are the steps required? So this was like the book writing example where it was like, okay, I need to create an outline. I need to create a first draft. I need to get, have a completed draft. I need to get other people to review it for me. So those are like the steps required for that. As far as personal finance specific examples, so if you are like wanting to try a new app for managing your finances, the first step might be research what the options are. The next step might be pick one to try it, decide in a month if I want to try a different one. So breaking each of them down into the steps involved. The next one is what habits would help you achieve this goal and what habits would help you achieve it faster. So this goes back again to process-oriented goals, identifying the things that you're actually going to do to accomplish this goal instead of just saying, I want to save $10,000 and writing that on a notebook and putting it in a drawer and finding it a year later. So making sure that that you're answering the question, how are you going to achieve this? Okay. Do you need any new skills in order to achieve this goal? Is there something that you have to learn? Is there something that you have to practice? What are the one-time tasks and actions required? So like if your goal is to roll over your 401k, the one-time tasks, well, there probably won't be any habits that would help you with that, I suppose. That's going to be mostly like one-time actions. But just thinking through like both for habits and actions, if your goal is to save $1,000, what habits do you need that are going to help you get that goal? That's that opportunity to think through, how am I going to do this on a regular day-to-day basis? How much time do you need to accomplish the goal, and how much money do you need? And I feel like money goals, they're especially easy to make specific and measurable. It's a lot harder than with like health goals. If your goal is to like feel better or look better, that's a lot harder to quantify. So I think that doing money goals, it's a little bit easier from that side of things. So I think that's probably pretty understandable. Whose support do you need? So this goes back to making it attainable for you personally. Do you need to enlist someone's support, like having your spouse take care of the kids while you go to the gym? Thinking through like, who could help you, who might help you, and then making sure that you either find some way around that or enlist their help in achieving it. Okay, what barriers or obstacles might get in the way of achieving this goal? And then what can you do to overcome those barriers and obstacles? I'll tell you right now, one of the big obstacles for your goals is January 17th. I think that's the day where they say most people fall off their annual goals. So you should have some kind of plan for January 18th to try to make sure that you can overcome that obstacle. That's a very common obstacle. People just get busy, forget about things. I'm not saying it's necessarily a bad thing, but if you want to achieve this goal and work on it all year, you're going to have little contact points where you like make sure that you're on track for it, and make sure that you can overcome what other little barriers that you might face, or big barriers. Okay, and then I have, what can I cut from my current life to make room for this goal? This one was a game changer for me because I like to say yes to my goals. I'm a goal yes man. I want to do all the things. And so it's really assaulting to be like, oh, what am I going to give up in order to get this thing? But it's really important because that's just honest, isn't it? That's just being honest with ourselves. We can't always add new goals into our life. We have to sometimes terminate old things that we're doing, things that no longer serve us, reevaluating the things that we're doing and cutting out the things to make room for new things. So it's painful. I don't like it, but it's very helpful. So one of the examples I've heard of this is like, if you have kids that do multiple sports each year, can you eliminate one of the sports so that way there's less running around? In my personal life, what have I done? I did Toastmasters for a while, and then I decided to cut that out so that way I could do more consistent live streams. That was when I was doing them on here, if you remember. So life is about trade-offs. Money and finances are about trade-offs. What can we cut to make room for the new things that we want to do? So I think I probably beat that to death. And I really like this idea. I can't remember who wrote about this, but it's called intentional imbalance. So like specifically choosing areas of your life to put on the back burner in order to focus on making really good progress in another area. If we try to do all the things at once, we tend to feel overwhelmed and like we're not making progress just because that progress is small, so it's harder to see and notice. If instead you do intentional imbalance, you can make really good lasting changes in one category that'll sustain itself, or hopefully sustain itself, when you change your focus to another area. So I really like this idea, and it does kind of go back to like, what can you cut to make room for your new goals? Hopefully that makes sense. Hopefully I'm explaining that well. So picking areas of your life or areas of your finances to prioritize, and picking which ones are going to be on the back burner. And it's hard to do because everything feels important, all the different areas. So, but I find that's one way to help me not get overwhelmed. Okay, and then let's see here. What can I change in my current environment to make achieving this goal easier? So there's a lot of research that shows like how our living space is set up very heavily impacts the actions that we take. I've heard people say things like, if you're trying to learn the guitar, put the guitar on the couch, and then you have to pick it up in order to sit down. Like, putting things in your environment is a tool that you can use to help make your goal easier to accomplish. Just not having to go over those 3 extra steps to open your guitar case and get your guitar out. That might be the difference that it takes in order to actually like learn how to play the guitar for you. One that I do all the time is, if I need to like take something out of my house, I have a little staging area on our kitchen table where I put all the things that I'm taking with me. So that way, like, I basically have to trip over it in order to get out of the house. That helps me remember to grab it. So you can use your environment to accomplish your goals. So one that I've heard of that I really like taking your credit card out of your wallet and putting it in a block of ice in the freezer, like freezing it in water. That's one way that you can like make your environment easier for you to not use your credit card, right? And that's just kind of one example, but do you guys have any good examples on that? I feel like that's a really fun one, and I don't think people do it. I don't think people put enough weight into how much our environment really affects us and the actions that we take. Some of the other ones might be, maybe you put a little sticky note on your mirror that says, every time I brush my teeth, I check my bank balance. And what would be some other ones? Yeah, so thinking through like how you can create visual reminders in your house, in your office, in your vehicle, wherever you hang out. Putting in visual reminders for your goals is a great one. That's why I love the little vision boards, is because this is a reminder that I have these things that I am working towards. And so that's like a visual environmental reminder to myself to keep working on them. One of the biggest threats for people's goals is getting put away in a drawer and not seeing them again for a year. So anything you can do to force yourself to do the thing that you want to do is going to be very helpful. Okay, Mind Your Money says, these are good tips. Thank you. I like the idea of leaving visual reminders. I needed that for my son so he can pick up playing the guitar again. Okay, good. I mean, that was perfect. Yeah, so there's all kinds of little things. I've heard of people like when they wake up, they'll instantly put their running shoes on. And just the act of putting on their shoes, like they're way more likely to actually do a workout or to go on a walk. I did a blog post about this a while ago. I should have refreshed on that before I did this, but there's lots of ways that you can tweak your environment to help you with your goals. Okay, the next question, what actions will I take to get back on the wagon if I've fallen off? So this kind of goes back to like the January 18th thing, right? If you fall off your goals, what are you going to do to get yourself back on track? And I have read research on this that says if you have a plan, a written plan for what you're going to do when you fall off of your habits, you're like 90% more likely to achieve your goal. Something about just like thinking through what you'll actually do like helps prevent it. I don't know the psychology behind it, but I did read that there was research done on that. So some of the things that you can do, for examples, phone a friend. If I fall off my goal of doing daily spending review, I can call my friend Becca and be like, hey, I fell off my goal. Like I need a little bit of encouragement and motivation to get back on top of it. You could set up some kind of mastermind group or join a mastermind group to work towards your goals, have that like accountability. You can say, if I fail this goal, I will do the easiest task on my list to gain my momentum back. You can say, if I fail this goal, I will work on a stronger why statement for this goal. So those are some of the things that you can do if you fall off of the wagon. I never know if people are familiar with that phrase. I use it all the time, but yeah, if you fail or miss a day, what are you going to do to get back on track? Then you can do what will your reward be for successfully completing this goal? I struggle with using rewards, but I wanted to include this because I know a lot of people, it helps them a lot. 40 and Broke says, I like the idea of a written plan for falling off the wagon. Yeah, I wish I could say I came up with it, but like I said, I heard about that when I was researching like just goals in general and like how to actually achieve goals. So sometimes it can be really fickle. But yes, I agree. Thank you. So what will your reward be? So if I hit my savings goal of X, then what will I do to reward myself? I would caution you to make sure that your rewards don't negate the progress that you've made. A really good example of this is like, if I work out today, I'm going to eat a pint of ice cream. I mean, not that there's anything wrong with that, but just think about like, try to find ways to reward yourself that keep your momentum going, that aren't going to make you feel crummy and sluggish the next day, and things that are going to like, that you still feel good about. So some examples of that would be like, if I achieve this, I'm going to do, I'm going to take a nap. That's a good one, because that's a free thing that you can do. So if I achieve this goal, I'm going to take a nap. So it doesn't negate any of your other goals. And in fact, being well rested might actually help you keep going. So think about your rewards as, is this going to set me back on my progress? So for financial, it would be like, if I save $1,000, my reward would be, I'm going to go on a $500 shopping spree, right? So we want to make sure that our goals are, that our rewards are in alignment with like what we want, bigger picture. So try not to have those take you backwards. Okay, and now this is an interesting and controversial one. What would the punishment be if you fail? Now, I brought this up at one of the workshops that I hosted in person before the pandemic, and the lady said, I absolutely will not do that. I never, like, I struggle with being mean to myself, so I just don't want to do it. So I understand if you, don't really want to set a punishment for yourself. But I would say like that's not the intention of this. The intention is never to be unkind to yourself. It's never to beat yourself up. When I say this, I'm talking like posting a slightly embarrassing photo of yourself on social media. Like, you have your good reward, but then also having something, just something, anything as like, oh, here's like the negative side effect if I don't do this thing. I think it kind of helps to have both. Another one I've heard of is there's an app where you set like a daily habit, and then if you fail it, they send money to a charity that you don't like. I think the example that I heard was like, oh, they'll donate money to like the George Bush Foundation or like some politician that you would be opposed to. So kind of like funny, but just like a little bit like negative. I don't know. That's up to you guys if you want to set like a punishment for yourself. Again, to be very clear, I'm not talking about beating yourself up, being unkind to yourself at all, but some kind of like counterbalance to the reward. Okay, the next step is create reminders now. So I think we kind of covered this already with like how to change your current environment. But anytime you do goal setting, it's always really good if you can take some tiny action like now, as soon as possible, to get a little momentum going. Because thinking about doing things and actually doing things are two different things. Not to say things 3 times in one sentence, but so this would be a really good like little tiny thing that you could do right now to take some kind of action. Maybe it's filling in a few Post-it notes and putting those on your monitor. Maybe it's grabbing a inspirational photo to use like as a little vision board to put as your screen on your phone, your homepage background. Any kind of little task like that. Having index cards on your desk, like write the goal and then set that on top of your desk, so that way each day you can like flip through the index card goals just as a reminder. Or setting a calendar reminder. So if it's like, okay, tomorrow I'm going to call the whatever, their office is closed. So maybe you set a calendar reminder for Monday at 7. Any kind of little action will help you kind of get your motivation or help you get your momentum going for your goals. 40 and broke, I heard about it from you, so I'll give you all the credit. Thank you. And Tasha says, I have a vision board also. I started creating one 2 years ago. It's a great way to see your goals staring at you every day. Yes, I agree. Using index cards, good one. Yeah, I heard about this from another YouTube channel, Leffy, I think is how you pronounce it. But she did her, instead of doing like a visual one, she just wrote out her goals and like her intentions for her life, like how she wants to live. And then she says she flips through them every day. And it's nice because it's nice for people who are more private, right? Because not everyone wants to do a physical vision board in their office. And it's nice because you can take it with you. So like if you travel a lot, it might be good to do index cards instead of a big vision board. And I would like to actually take a few index cards and put images on them. So that way I have the option of either one and just see what works better for me. But yeah, I can't take credit for that one either, but I agree it is a good one. Okay, and then one of the questions, this one is a kind of a random goal, just a helpful question that I use. Is this going to help me get closer to my goal or farther from it? So this is just like after the goal setting process, you're in your regular day-to-day life. I'll ask myself, is this purchase going to help me get closer to my goal or farther from it? Is this thought going to get me closer to my goal or farther from it? I try to be pretty positive about like the things I have. So, okay, so what's an example of this? If you believe that like money is evil, the root of all evil, which I think has been kind of misquoted. It's like the love of money is the root of all evil. But if you just believe money is evil, it's going to be a lot harder for you to save money, right? Like, even though you might want financial security, if you have a conflict between like your thoughts and your goals, that's going to make it harder, right? That's going to get you farther from your goal instead of closer to it. And then the last one is this action going to get me closer to my goal or farther from it? So purchase, thought, and action, those were the three that I could think of. As far as like, yeah, that's just kind of a guiding light question when I'm shopping. Is this going to help me get closer to my goal? It helps me not spend money, so I like that one quite a bit. Okay, I know I said that action planning was the last page, but I forgot that I actually have the 3 most common mistakes that I think people make with their personal finance. Personal finance goals specifically. Okay, so I'll do these really quick, I promise. Number 1, setting goals that are too aggressive and then end up feeling deprived. So like I said, Bill Gates says most people overestimate what they can do in 1 year and underestimate what they can do in 10. So people, that's a normal thing that we do. It's just the way our brain thinks of time. It just tends to be a lot easier to think we can do a lot in 1 year. So I've noticed people will set a savings goal that's like really aggressive, like no spending for 9 months, like nothing but food. Now I understand that there's a time and place for that. I've certainly been in that place where I'm like, I can't spend money right now out of practicality. Like that's the way that it was. But be really careful when you're setting goals to not deprive yourself for too long. And I have noticed even in myself, if I go for too long, too restrictive with spending, that I tend to binge spend. Like I'll go out and have like a big shopping day. Now that's not always 100% bad. Sometimes it just seems like a lot because I'm buying the things that I had been needing and would have been buying. But it's a little bit out of control at times, like that binge spending. So be really careful not to restrict your spending for too long. And in order to avoid this, I really recommend doing purchase procrastination, keeping track of all the things that you want to buy. And then as you're budgeting, find a way to work in like the least expensive thing on your list, or set money aside each time. So that way you feel like you are working towards having that thing that you want and not being too much into that like financial deprivation mode. This one is random, but another way to prevent this that I've noticed is actually investing. Sometimes I find if I'm like looking for stocks to purchase, it feels a little bit like shopping. It kind of scratches that itch of like, oh, you know, needing or feeling like I need to spend a little money. So that's a random tip for you, investing. Okay. All right. Ward Willis, hello, welcome. Do you recommend a piggy bank, like a physical piggy bank? I love piggy banks. I have many. In fact, when I was a kid, I had 2 piggy banks and then like a big flower vase that I converted to a piggy bank because I had enough change that I needed to keep it all in there. As far as keeping physical cash, you certainly can keep things around. I've heard of, you should check out like Rochelle Adamson has some savings challenges that are specifically like saving up cash and change that you get. And people actually, if you keep your change, like a lot of people just throw it away, if you keep your change, you can actually save quite a bit of money. Stay away from Amazon to start saving. Yes, I applaud you. Online shopping is really difficult. There are good articles online, like how to prevent online shopping, like overdoing it. Some of the tips I've heard is like removing your credit card number from there. That way, like you have to do that extra step of like going and getting your credit card. So that makes spending money on there more difficult, right? Like, it's not a huge thing, but anything you can do to make it more difficult is going to help you to do or not do whatever you're trying to do or not do. So good point. Thank you for sharing that. Amazon is dangerous. I like it quite a lot. Okay. Mistake number 2, I think, is having all results-oriented goals and none of these process-oriented goals. So again, it's like save $1,000 instead of saying like, I'm going to dine out one less time per month. I'm going to cut my subscription to this, which will save $20 per month. And again, it's just because finance is so, what is the word? I always forget the word, so I write it down at the top. Intangible. Money and finances are so intangible. What does $1,000 mean? In my brain, it doesn't really mean anything. I need to like define that why, or not the why. I need to define that how of how am I actually going to do it? What does $1,000 actually mean to me? So that's okay. That was a rant for you. And then, like I said, it's okay to have those results-oriented goals. I have a few, like say a $70,000 down payment, but making sure that you also have those process-oriented goals, those habit goals, I think that's a game changer. Okay, the final one is not having enough why or purpose behind each goal. So one of the things you can do is define a why statement for each of your goals. So, you're answering the question, why do I want this? So let's talk about revenge bodies. I don't know if you guys have heard of revenge bodies, but basically it's like a person after they like get cheated on will like get into really good shape as like a result of a breakup that they go through. And I was thinking about this and like, how are people able to do that? Like, it's not that they suddenly have a lot more willpower. Their brains have like the same chemistry, nothing has changed. But people are able to get into shape because they decided to do it and because they had a powerful reason to do it, a powerful emotional reason to do it. So you can do the same thing with your goals. You can decide to do something and find a powerful reason to tell yourself and remind yourself when you don't feel like doing it. So just identifying like one powerful thing to say to yourself. And in this scenario, like the more emotion, the better. And it has to be something that resonates with you personally. Like it can't just be, whatever someone else said. So the very first like powerful why statement that I had for my finances was, I want to be able to be there for my little brother if he gets in a snowboarding accident. The total cost of that I calculated at the time was like $950. When people get injured here, they typically get sent to like Seattle. So I calculated like how much it would cost to go to Seattle if that emergency situation happened. Of course, lots of things could happen, but that was like the one thought that I found that like really motivated me, that I was like, yeah, I'm not ever having less than $950 ever again. Like I need to be able to like go and visit family if they get hurt. Like that's important to me. Another one I've heard is, I never want to be this broke again. I think that's a pretty popular one. So let's see. Let me get caught up on comments here. How about just saving a certain percentage of your income weekly? Is that easier said than done? No, I like it. I think weekly is better than monthly. Kind of getting it out of your account as you can. Depends on how often you get paid. If you get paid weekly, absolutely. Send a portion of it to savings right away. Yeah. Anything you can do today that's going to make your future life easier, that's good. That's ultimately the goal. Everyone press like to thank you. Okay, everyone press like to help the algorithm. I appreciate you. This cutting edge content should be heard by more people. Thank you. Like I said, a lot of it is stuff that I've just learned trying to like do my own goals and stuff. So hopefully it's helpful. Tasha says I needed to read that. Tracking my expenses, I see way too many Amazon purchases. Yeah, don't we all? Okay. Okay, I'm gonna try not to cry on the rest of these. I almost started crying when I was writing them, like in preparation for this, because like they're meant to be emotional. Like they should be emotional in order to actually motivate you. So like one thing that I always thought was like, I'll do whatever it takes so that I don't have to live a life where I'm stressed out about money all the time. Cordy and Broke says tracking my expenses shows me a lot of lunch purchases, and I trimmed back. I was sick of being broke all the time, and that was my why. Sick of being broke all the time. That's one I've heard quite a bit. Lisa Nichols is like a self-development person, and she tells this heartbreaking story where like she couldn't afford diapers and like she swore to her little baby. Oh God. Okay, yes. So you can go and watch that your own selves. But yeah, just promising like to never be that broke again. Very motivating for me personally. Another good one is like, oh, I want to be the first person in my family to ... I want to be the first person in my family to go to school, retire, own a house, whatever. Like I've heard of people using that as motivation as well. One of my ones now is I want to be a badass at managing money. I don't know why, but the word badass just really resonates with me. Like I want to be good at things. Like I want to be like top of the notch, top notch. I don't even know the right word that I'm trying to say. So yeah, whatever kind of why statement that you can come up with to help motivate you for each of those goals is going to be very helpful. Now, if you have a small goal, like let's say your finances are in pretty good shape and you're just trying to like save an extra $100 each month for a vacation. Like for a small goal, you can have a small why statement. It doesn't have to be, a big extravagant thing. I'd say if you have a big goal, big powerful why statement is going to be where you want to be. Oh my gosh, I am so choked up. Oh, Tasha says top notch. Oh, yes. Have you read Jen Sincero's badass books? I have. I read I want to be a badass at money. What's the other one? I have, but it was a while ago now. Red. Yes, I knew what you meant. Yeah, those are really good ones too. If you guys are looking for book suggestions, her book Badass at Money, it was really good. So, should you pay off debt before saving? Good question. Highly controversial in the world of personal finance. I had $10,000, a $10,000 emergency fund the entire time I was paying off our student loans and cars. So people do it different ways. You can certainly find a number that works for you. I'm all about DIYing my finances. I didn't like follow anyone's particular plan. I kind of like to be the one that comes up with the plan that I'm going to follow. And certainly I will go through and like, if I hear a good tip, I'll certainly incorporate other people's ideas. But ultimately, I just feel like you should do whatever works for you. There's so many different ways to pay off your finances or to pay off debt. And there's so many different ways to manage your money that just finding something that resonates with you is the best tip that I can give you. I don't typically recommend to my clients that they have a $10,000 emergency fund. That was really something that I did because like financial security is really important to me. And so I wanted to have that money no matter what. And it kind of makes sense, right? Like if you don't have savings and something happens, you might need to go into more debt. So it's kind of like you're paying for it either way. So I'm probably not answering your question. Dave Ramsey says, have $1,000 emergency fund while you are in baby step 2, which is paying off debt. let's see, I've heard of other people. I know a lot of people, like he started giving that advice a long time ago, like in the 1980s or something. So like the inflation on that number alone would have been huge. So like, I don't know that $1,000 is enough anymore. And it'll kind of depend on your family size, your house size, if you have people dependent on you, how much you need to save while you're paying off debt. I have clients that will do like $500 is their savings. I have some clients that like 10 or not 10, $3,000 is like their bare minimum savings while they're paying off debt. Because you need some savings. It's just then determining how much to have. Good question. You put me on the spot. But it's good because that's an important question. It's one of the most common ones for personal finance. Did that help you? Do you need more information on that? Maybe I can follow up and like link an article or something to that comment afterwards. Okay, so we talked about having a good why statement for each of the goals. That's all I had. Oh my goodness, I talked for so long. An hour 45. Thank you guys so much for hanging with me. Before you go, I'd love to hear in the chat, what was the most helpful takeaway from this session? Was there one particular goal that inspired you? Was there one particular tip that you hadn't heard that you're going to implement? I always ask clients that at the end of each call, and it's just like, I feel like it's a good way to recap kind of what the takeaways were. Ward says, yes, that did help. Thank you. Okay, good. And so what was the most helpful takeaway? And then what is your top result goal and top process goal for 2022? So going back to that idea of what is the outcome that you're working towards, your number one outcome related financial goal? And then what is your number one process oriented goal that you're working on in this year? Mine are, what did I have for finance? I just set these the other day, so I haven't committed them fully to memory yet. But our top savings goal is to save a $70,000 down payment. And then I set several process goals. One of the big ones was to, keep on top of tracking our net worth and savings rate. So savings rate says what percentage of my income was I able to save this month? So it's like after spending has happened, how much money did I actually save? So those are like the two statistics that I want to keep on top of. I'm going to try to watch this again later so I can absorb it more. I'm really looking to be more intentional with my goals for 2022 is my year of intent. Ooh, I like that. Yeah, that's great. Every time I try to say intentional, which I just said it because I'm thinking about it, I often accidentally say intentionable. Anyway, that just made me think of that. But yes, being intentionable with your goals, very good. It takes a little bit of effort, doesn't it? When you are like trying to really think about what you want, how to like optimize your life and your finances for like really what you're going after. Because it can change. It takes time to think about it. It's not particularly straightforward, right? If there's 50 things that you want to do in your life for your finances, like which one of those are you going to prioritize? It's not easy to do. At least it's not for me. I mean, maybe I have too much that I want to do, but I just said that my top goal was tracking. Process-wise, I would say it's actually doing my daily money journaling. So I used to do our finances mostly digitally, just have spreadsheets and apps that I would use. I want to try to do more physical tracking. So in my little money journal here, so like I have like June, you can see June. So really the goal that I'm trying to do like process-wise is to keep up on this, which includes things like being mindful about spending, since I write out like the big things that we spend money on. Keeping a gratitude list, that's one of the things that I use this for. So this is kind of like one of the ways that I lump my goals together into one. And I meant to mention this. I must have deleted my note, but try to go through your list and find the goals that have good synergy together. Okay, I know synergy is such a gross word, but it's the perfect word to describe what I mean. Like, find the goals in your list that like go together really well, that you can stack them up. So I know I only talked about finance goals, but if like one of your goals is to spend more time with friends, you could do like an activity with your friend that's like a DIY that you can use for like free home decor kind of thing. So like finding like things that go together well. Some of the other ones, like I'm trying to be better about like doing more for the environment, being more environmentally conscious. So it's like I started hang drying my laundry instead of putting it in the dryer, which is a small change, but slightly better for the environment and saves money. So that's like it's like a power goal. It's a power action that supports multiple of the goals and values that I have. So try to find those things that you can kind of stack up to be like especially helpful, because then you can kind of trick the system and accomplish more. Another really good one of these is like working out on the treadmill while you read. So you could do like a triple whammy where you have like, I'm walking on the treadmill. That's good for my exercise goal. I'm trying to be more active. I'm reading, which is like my general education goal is to read 12 books. And I'm learning about investing or saving money. So it's good for my money goals too. So you can like stack your goals up, pick ones that like can go together. And that's like supercharging your like goals, supercharging your goal. I'm too excited about this. I love this idea so much. Ward says, my goal is to find a more rewarding career in 2022, one that pays more and helps me feel like I have more of a purpose. That's great. Yeah, I have a section for career as well. I try to always have like one career goal. Last year, like I updated my resume. So not a huge thing, but yeah, finding a rewarding career. So I wonder what kinds of things you might do to work towards that. Do you have it narrowed down to jobs that you might want to try out? Those could be tasks. One thing I was doing was I was like, oh, I think it would be cool to be a mortgage underwriter. So to advance that in the career category, I did a $10 Udemy course on mortgage underwriting, which is super boring. It might have just been types of mortgages or something like that, but I'd be interested to hear what kinds of things you're going to do in service of that goal if you have planned it out. It's the first day, so you do not have to have it planned out all the way right now. There have been years where I don't get all this goal setting done until like March. And I've streamlined the process. Partly I just like planning. And so a little bit of that was like procrastination of, oh, I could actually start working on this, or I could plan it out a little more. So make sure you make that transition from planning the goal to taking action on the goal. But yeah, anyway, pays goal and has more purpose. I love that. I think this is good because a lot of people have a belief that there are no jobs available that they would like more that also pay better. And I think this is a little bit of like scarcity mindset, scarcity thinking, to just not believe that that's even possible. So I always push people like, there are thousands of jobs out there. Like, it's somebody's job to work for the Guinness Book of World Records and go around and watch people complete their like life's goal. Like, how cool is that? There's so many different jobs, and each individual person has like unique skill sets. So if you're at whatever job you're doing right now, if you're not using 100% of the things that you're good at, then you're not fully optimizing the value you could provide to an employer. So I think that it's really sad that people don't believe that they could have a better paying job or have a job that they like or feel better about. So I think that's really good. I just wanted to commend you on that because I know a lot of people don't share that same belief, that aren't willing to try to find something that fits them better and pays more. Tasha, that's good. Stack those goals. Yes. Thank you very much. This is helpful. Okay, good. Okay, I literally am going to let you go. Again, if you could just put in the chat or comments what was the most helpful takeaway and what is your top result goal and top process-oriented goal for 2022. I will let you guys go. Thank you so much. You've been lovely. You've been lovely, like I'm some kind of act. You've all been lovely. So, all right. I will see you guys later. Thank you all. Bye.